By breaking blocks in Minecraft and observing where items drop, you can obtain real-time coordinates of any player on any server. This most absurd bug in Minecraft's history remained hidden in plain sight for 13 years and was only revealed to the public today. It all started back in 2011, when the game's creator Notch wrote a line of code that kept this bug functional until now. You heard that right. Even if your server is running the latest version, your coordinates can still be leaked. A group of players from Minecraft Anarchy servers weaponized this vulnerability and have been secretly using it for over a year to gain control over several servers, especially 2B2T. Today we will explain the history of this so-called render vulnerability from start to finish. Since it is still effective, I will also share the best ways to stay safe. Ensure your base is protected from this attack. Once you understand how it works, you'll understand easily why it is the most powerful positioning exploit ever. Just break one block to locate anyone on any server. Why did players take over a decade to discover this vulnerability? To give you a more comprehensive understanding, we must go back to where it all began. It all started with a simple little mistake. The 14th of September, 2011, Minecraft updated to Beta 1.8, also known as the Adventure Update. This was the first time villages were added to the game. For villages to appear in the world, the generation of these structures relies on RNG. That is a random number generator. You can think of it as rolling dice. RNG is used to determine many things in Minecraft. For example, the location where monsters spawn, or when blocks are broken, the location where dropped items appear. These random numbers should be unpredictable. Theoretically, it should be like this. However, when the game's creator Notch was writing the code for village generation, he accidentally did something he absolutely should not have done. Let me explain. Structure generation and events in the game, such as items, potions, should have been determined by different RNG. As a programmer, you absolutely need to calculate these things separately. However, Notch code was like this. It made all events share the same RNG. This might sound trivial, but this mistake ultimately led to huge consequences. But at the time, this issue went completely unnoticed. As more updates were released, more new structures were added to the game, and they were just like villages. The RNG they use for generation is the same. For 7 years, this code has never been changed. Until 2018, someone finally noticed this strange issue. The 15th of April, 2018, a blogger named Amiga uploaded a video about loading specific chunks, then exited and re-entered the Minecraft scene. They successfully predicted the exact location where lightning would strike. The location where lightning strikes should be random. This is the first known proof of successfully manipulating Minecraft's random numbers. It didn't take long. Others gradually began researching based on this. A few months later, blogger Earth Computer released a video. Further research on how to manipulate RNG by loading specific chunks can manipulate the random number generator. The Prototech and Cycraft communities collaborated to make more discoveries, such as using RNG to build highly efficient mob farms. But unfortunately, all of this is coming to an end. These experiments all occurred in version 1.12, but a few months ago, Mojang released version 1.13, a snapshot of the Ocean update. This version fixed the issue of shared RNG in in-game events. All these major discoveries emerged after the snapshot release, so it seems that Mojang's fix for shared RNG was entirely accidental. At this moment, manipulating RNG is considered a technique in outdated versions. Most people no longer pay attention to it, resulting in no major progress for a long time. But this is what makes my world interesting. A bug fix, meaningless in the long run. Sometimes having the right person in the right place can change everything. In 2022, several years later, a Minecraft player named Nofox, while browsing videos online, stumbled upon one of those 2018 RNG manipulation videos. After reading it, he realized there was a positioning vulnerability. It might be possible to exploit this shared RNG bug. As a programmer, he began conducting experiments to prove this. All these experiments involve this shared RNG world rand. In the server, whenever a new chunk is loaded, a woodland mansion structure generation attempt is made. It uses world rand set C to determine the generation location, before checking specific generation criteria. Whenever a chunk is loaded, this woodland mansion check is run once. Meanwhile, when a block is broken, the XYZ coordinates where items appear are generated by world rand. This world rand is shared among all players. This means these random XYZ coordinates are actually related to the nearest woodland mansion generation check. So these steps always occur in this order. And in a server, whenever they break a block, this information is sent to all players' clients. But that is not all. Fox then made an even more shocking discovery, that the entire process is reversible. By breaking a block, then using various algorithms to calculate the coordinates of the dropped items, you can reverse engineer the structure generation algorithm and obtain the locations of recently loaded chunks on the server. All of this is because this information will be provided to each player's client whenever they break a block, even if they are not the one loading that chunk. So if you continuously break blocks, you can consistently know which chunks have been updated by other players. This is undoubtedly a significant discovery. Fox also tested this exploit in earlier versions and found it still works. You only need to change the type of structure you are looking for. Just change it according to the latest entry in the structure list within the code. This vulnerability existed in all previous versions and remained effective up until Beta 1.8. This all stemmed from a simple mistake notch made in the RNG code. So from the beta version all the way to 1.12, this positioning glitch remained usable. Now you might think, because after the Ocean update, the game fixed the shared RNG issue, servers using these newer versions should be safe. But that is not the case. As long as they have ever run version 1.12 or earlier, there is still an exploitable opportunity, because if someone on the server obtains past game data, for example by using replay mod, they can still exploit this vulnerability to analyze these old logs, to determine the player's locations at that time. So if the base from back then still exists now, its location would be exposed by these old logs. And all this can be achieved simply by breaking one block. NotFox discovered the most powerful location vulnerability in Minecraft history. This vulnerability remained hidden in plain sight for 10 years, and could more or less affect almost all Minecraft servers. To test its effectiveness, he turned his attention to Anarchy servers. This was the perfect testing ground, without worrying about the risk of being banned. Plus many Anarchy servers at that time were still on version 1.12, exactly the version where this vulnerability was most effective. He started testing on smaller servers first. For example, on 9b9t he would randomly appear in other people's bases, and fine-tune the exploit based on its effectiveness, since unfamiliar visitors at the base usually mean it is about to be destroyed. This is a rare cases where someone becomes a saboteur for scientific purposes. He named this exploit Render, a combination of WorldRend and Radar. This basically spells out the principle in the name. Since the Render exploit proved effective on smaller servers, it is time to try bigger ones. In March 2023, Fox turned his attention to 2b2t, the oldest Anarchy server in Minecraft. This is a place no stranger to exploits. Just minutes after joining 2b2t, Fox had already obtained a series of coordinates. What happened next was perhaps the biggest commotion I've ever witnessed on 2b2t. After understanding how powerful this exploit was, Fox wanted to use it on the server's most famous group, the Spawn Masons. In 2b2t, the Masons also have a history of using exploits to empower themselves. In fact, one of their members, Razor, is considered the mastermind behind the infamous NoCom exploit. This exploit could track all players on the server in real time, and even remotely map out base layouts. For a period of time, the group possessed the largest active base on the entire server, and they maintain a decentralized storage network called GreenOps to this day. Fox managed to locate one of these warehouses, and decided to pay the Masons team an uninvited visit. A Masons member who was idly monitoring the warehouse discovered this unexpected visitor. They were greatly shocked. This inexplicably appeared individual managed to find one of the most hidden warehouses on the entire server. This caused panic. The Masons leadership quickly began contacting Fox and attempted to negotiate. Fox introduced himself, and revealed that he used an RNG exploit to specifically target them. Since he was not a player specialized in 2b2t, he decided to share this knowledge with specific individuals. Through joint efforts, they can improve this vulnerability, enhance its efficiency. They can weaponize it and keep it confidential. Members of the Masons, Lejury, Babbage, and Entropy, able to manipulate it behind the scenes in real time. After some rapid programming, they once again saw a very familiar scene. All players on the server were tracked in real time again. And a heat map was generated. For example, this one in the video, a block with a radius of 1 million. Based on this, Mason built an active coordinate database. Its data volume exceeds 90 million entries, including annotations, screenshots and player usernames, presented on a real-time heat map. The render bug allowed them to observe many interesting player behaviors. For instance, look at these rectangles expanding on the heat map. This is not an arrow. This is observed by exploiting vulnerabilities. Those spot players using Elytra hacks to scan back and forth. Every player is under surveillance, just like the NoCom exploit, and all this data can be obtained by breaking just a few blocks. But having such powerful capabilities on 2b2t, the natural question becomes how to use it. At that moment, some names instantly came to the minds of the Mason members. The team leaders strongly disliked the 2b2t shops. These are players who sell in-game items for real-world money. In their view, the best way to bankrupt these shops was to steal all the supplies from their warehouses. Doing so would also replenish their own warehouse supplies. But if any Mason members were caught at the scene of the theft, the community would immediately realize there was another location exploit. They would instantly lose their advantage. So as a cover, the Mason members created a new account named Mom. Any Mason member using this account must pretend to be an ordinary base hunter. They never used this account for sabotage or theft, only to ensure these players wouldn't abandon or self-destruct their bases. If a set of coordinates appeared to be active, they would investigate using Mom. All Mason members combined traveled millions of blocks in just a few weeks. If there are bases or warehouses they want to destroy or steal from, they prepared a second account for doing dirty work, named 1248 Test User, because Mom would never engage in such evil and dirty deeds like stealing. But news of Mom visiting various bases quickly spread, to the extent that the community came up with an exploit named Mom. Mason actually helped fuel this exploit behind the scenes, because it provided good cover for the render exploit. Meanwhile, keeping the real exploit, Yuanli confidential, was also important, so ordinary Mason members would only be told the target locations. Only senior staff know how it actually works. But when the team started planning some highly ambitious projects, they suddenly got quite a scare. May 1, 2023. An MC content creator named Matthew Boland uploaded a video of a redstone device. This machine can crack the RNG in vanilla Minecraft. It involves measuring the direction of TNT that theoretically explodes randomly. This test video made the Mason members concerned. They were worried that someone would continue researching in this direction, and eventually discover the existence of the radar vulnerability. But fortunately, this did not happen. They remained the only ones aware of the vulnerability, but this still forced them to accelerate their actions. They compiled a list of all the stores they wanted to target. Then they first visited each one with Montemay, followed immediately by test user. Store owners began warning each other, saying Montemay was not just an ordinary base hunter. He somehow located all their warehouses. Because the entire 2B2T community dislikes the existence of item shops, Montemay began to be seen as a hero by people. For several months, Mason successfully used radar to obtain a large number of items. But in July 2023, their own warehouse was raided by a player named Montemay. He discovered one of the warehouses, started looting as many items from it as possible. But fortunately, with the help of a bug, the Mason members were able to predict this incident. After a minor conflict, they contacted Montemay and reached an agreement. Montemay was allowed to take half of the items from the warehouse, as long as he did not disclose the coordinates of this place. The other party agreed, but in fact, it was a trap. Mason used radar to track Montemay's location, to see the final destination of their items. A few weeks later, several Mason members collaborated to carry out a major heist. They reclaimed all the stolen items, plus interest. In this situation, radar could be called the ultimate weapon. The entire server is exposed under its surveillance, and this will continue as long as 2B2T remains in version 1.12. But in August 2023, 2B2T did something unbelievable. Actually updated the server to the latest version of Minecraft, thereby indirectly fixing this vulnerability. They could no longer continue tracking the players, but they still possessed a list of all currently active bases and warehouses. Mason knew it wouldn't be long before the shop owners would transfer all the items away, so they accelerated their actions. Over the next few months, they raided as many warehouses as possible. If a target proved somewhat difficult to handle, they would carry out the raids using their own accounts, rather than Montemay or Testuser. They also launched a frenzied raid on Nosh Shop. This is one of the largest item trading shops on the entire server. The shop owner did everything possible to defend against the attack, but ultimately, over 6,000 shulker boxes from its inventory, 4,500 were successfully looted. Meanwhile, an informant revealed Mason had been exploiting a location glitch for months, but they didn't understand exactly how it worked. The community began to grow wary of their various initiatives, but it was too late. Mason still possessed everyone's coordinates. The items stored in their warehouse system had exceeded 1 billion in number, based on the selling prices in item shops. These items were worth tens of thousands of dollars. These items sat quietly in their warehouses, and they would never sell them. They successfully drove many item shops into bankruptcy and closure, although a few barely survived by reducing their inventory. Mason possessed such a vast quantity of items that they began giving them away for free around Christmas. They used a transportation system to distribute these shulker boxes. After Christmas, Mason realized it was finally time to reveal the truth to the public.